Grok 3 just launched a couple of hours ago, and I watched through the entire live stream and picked out a couple of the key moments that are relevant to the investment due diligence space. So in this video, I'm going to break those down. I'm going to show you my early findings and early thoughts based on what we can see online, because unfortunately, it's not available for the public to test just yet. And so for those of you who don't know me, I am James Nguyen. I'm the founder and CEO of Inflection Teams. We've been in the investment due diligence space since 2019, building AI workflows with humans in the loop. So think human perfect transcripts, extracting insights from expert calls, synthesizing large corpuses of unstructured data. And our clients include the biggest expert networks in the world and finance unicorns, as well as tech unicorns as well. So before we get into the actual live stream, and I'll play you a couple of the key moments, I just want to summarize the high level context, right? So Grok 3 was trained on 200,000 GPUs. If you're not familiar with what the benchmark is, that's 10x more. So they've pumped a lot more resources into the actual computing power to train this model. And that's how they've been able to get Grok 3 out and get it very, very close based on the benchmarks, or potentially even higher based on the benchmarks they shared, to the main competitors right now in OpenAI, Anthropic, Google Gemini. So that's number one. The second thing here is, for those of you who are not familiar, and why is Grok any different? Elon is a big fan of, as he says it here, maximally truth-seeking AI, i.e. he does not filter it. And so, Grok's image generator is able to generate any images. There's no real filters on it. And so he is trying to apply the same thesis here in the language model that they're actually building, which is there are less filters and they're seeking truth, even if sometimes truth is at odds with being politically correct. So that's the main context. I'm going to play a couple of the key insights in a second. I'll just zoom in here. These are some of the benchmarks they show. And it's important to appreciate that, always when they're showing benchmarks, whatever model is being released, whether it's OpenAI, in this instance, Grok, Anthropic, they are always going to be positioning the results that are going to be performing the best. I haven't played with Grok 3 yet, so I can't comment on it, but add that with a grain of salt. The AIM benchmarks, which is testing math, science, coding. You can see here Grok 3 as well as Grok 3 Mini performs better. Elon does mention that Grok 3 still is in beta stage. It is still being tested, is still being trained. There are still bugs involved. He gives it about a week or so, to quote him verbatim, of how long we should wait until there's a level of stability. But just take that in consideration when you're playing with it as well. And you can see here Grok 3 outperforms O3 Mini, O1. I'm not sure if this is O1 Pro of what is actually available only in ChatGPT rather than via the API, but that's important to note. Then you can see DeepSeek R1 here, and then Gemini 2 Flash Thinking. That's the model that has been released previously from Google, but there's also Gemini 2 Pro Experimental, which is also not mentioned here. If we just go over to Grok now, there's three things they really launched here. They launched Grok and they announced it. They launched the idea of test time compute, i.e. similar to what we're seeing from O1 models, the DeepSeek R1 models. We're seeing the amount of time that a model spends thinking about a problem, thinking about how to approach answering the problem. The chain of thought is proportionate to how thoughtful the actual answer is. So we're seeing an increase in the accuracy. We've seen that before. But the main thing that I want to just showcase as a quick snapshot is the agent they released. They didn't go with deep research, but they did go with deep search. So, it is very, very akin to what actually Google Gemini 1.5 deep research actually pioneered in the space. And then just recently we've seen ChatGPT's deep research, Perplexity follow with their deep research, open source model, and now we're seeing Grok 3's deep search, not deep research, deep search. So I'm just going to play through it, and we're just going to compare it.
To give the capability for those models to think harder, think longer, think more broad, the performance continually improves. And we're really excited about
just explaining how it works. We've seen this before.
The next frontier, that what happens if we not only allow the model to think harder, but also provide more tools, just like how real humans to solve those problems. For real humans, we don't ask them to solve Riemann hypothesis just with a piece of pen and paper, no internet. So
he's talking about access to tools, i.e. access to the internet. We've seen this with deep research across any of the other providers I just mentioned.
With all the basic web browsing, search engine, and code interpreters, that builds the foundations, and the best reasoning model builds the foundations. Next Starship launch date.
Okay. So again, you can see the interface is pretty similar to what we've seen across the board. When is the next Starship launch?
Example, looking into certain topics. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the bullet summaries.
This looks pretty similar to an interface that is akin to more of a Perplexity than a ChatGPT, not just because of the dark mode, but the way it seems to be citing. But again, they're very small nuances across the different providers here. It's doing the same thing, searching, using chain of thought, making a decision of what to do next. Elon very candidly says that what it's showing in terms of its thinking here is not representative of all the things that is actually happening behind the scenes, mainly because he doesn't want to share the IP publicly for other people to copy him. That's what he said.
Of how the current model is doing, what websites browsing, what sources verifying, and oftentimes actually cross-validate different sources out there.
So we've seen this before. So let's skip forwards to see the actual output. And so what they've actually said, and which was interesting, is because it is still early in their testing stage and because they're still fine tuning it, this is a live demo, they actually ran the same test multiple times. They did this across, the other tests they were running in the live stream to increase the probability that the output would be something that they would actually want. And they did that more for when they were coding a game, but it's just interesting to take note. So if we just go ahead, let's skip forwards for us to actually see the output.
On 24th or later, so no earlier than February 24th.
It might be sooner.
So I think we can scroll down what the model does. So it does a little research on the Flight 7, what happened, got grounded, and actually it looked into the FCC filing, from its data collections, and then actually made a new conclusion that if we continue to scroll down. Let's see. Right. Yeah, so it makes...
So you can see it's already got to the bottom. So that's my main takeaway here. I haven't spent a heap of time going through every single line here, but my immediate reaction is it seems akin from length and comprehensiveness to potentially more of a Perplexity. Maybe it's just short of a Gemini Deep Research. Maybe it's comparable to a Gemini Deep Research. But from what we have tested before and what we've seen is that ChatGPT's Deep Research is significantly more in-depth than that. Trust that when this comes out, I'll be testing it. I'll be running it through from an investment due diligence workflow. But in terms of the comprehensiveness, right, are there hallucinations? Are there false negatives? I.e., it doesn't include things that it should include, which is potentially counterproductive or potentially even more counterproductive than false positives, right? Because false positives, there can be an easier human in the loop process to check if that is or is not correct. So, what I'm seeing from an investment due diligence point of view is over-indexing on comprehensiveness because it's easier to pare down than it is to add something that you don't know is not there. So that's my initial impression so far. It seemed that this, again, the speed of Grok 3 is closer to a Perplexity. Perplexity is the fastest deep research that is happening right now, in several minutes, in 3 minutes or less. Google Gemini would be a little bit further up, and then, ChatGPT would take the longest. But, from what my experience and anecdotal tests so far, ChatGPT is giving me the most comprehensive, the most validated citations, and the least hallucination so far. So that's a quick look at Grok 3. It's going to come out apparently very, very soon. That's what it says when I log onto it. As of right now, I can't actively use it. I still only have Grok 2. That's that. I will test it very soon. Check back for more videos. We're inflection.ai. That's inflection with an X. If you want to check out our latest service offerings, that is inflectiontranscribe.com. So I'm James Nguyen. I'll see you on the next video.